Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Show. This is where we help experts grow their businesses. My name is Jane Atkinson. I'm the author of The Wealthy Speaker 2.0 and the Epic Keynote. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for showing up so faithfully each week. And I do hope that you will share the links with your buds in the speaking industry. Our topic today is accelerating your speaking business, and our special guest expert is Kindra Hall. Welcome, Kindra.
Hi.
Yay!
Hi, Jane. Hi, everyone. Hi.
Well, listen, let me give everybody your little intro, and then we're going to dive right in.
Great.
So Kindra is an internationally recognized speaker and thought leader for her expertise in strategic storytelling. As a former director of marketing and vice president of sales for a multi-million-dollar enterprise, she has intimate knowledge of the challenges executives, top performers, brands, and companies experience as they try to capture an attention in a crowded marketplace. Kindra teaches audiences and individuals how to build better relationships, become better leaders, and increase revenue by maximizing their untapped, untold stories. Love it. You've been so focused in your lane right out of the chute from the very beginning. Now, your bio goes on, but let's just dive right in. So actually, why don't we start with that question? How did you land on the lane of storytelling?
That's a great question. And really it was my only lane. I told my first story. I mean, it was the lane. So I told my first story when I was 11 years old as an assignment in 5th grade. And it was one of those, at the time, aha moments. I don't know. I think Oprah was on TV at that point. And I mean, I was 11, so I didn't necessarily really realize that. But from that moment, I then moved on to the speech team, which I'm sure many of your listeners are on the speech team, where I competed in storytelling. And then that led me to this national network of storytellers. So I was in a national storytelling competition, and then I went to the National Storytelling Conference, and then the National Storytelling Festival. And then I was on the board of the National Storytelling network. And so storytelling has been my whole life, really. And it was interesting to have this thing that you've been doing your whole life and then trying to figure out how to make it a business. And I would say like my first movement into it was in college. As an independent study, I studied stories within a hospital to see how it developed a culture. And then as my master's thesis, I studied the role of storytelling in organizational socialization. How is it that our stories shape company cultures? And then after graduate school, I then became a director of marketing and VP of sales for a company. And I still found myself when I was my best was when I was telling my stories and all of the marketing material. It was all about telling stories. For all of the sales training I was doing, it was all about telling stories. And so I started to wonder, like, is there something to this? Now, I had reached out to some of my storytelling mentors from the festival, from the different conferences, and asked them how did they become professional storytellers. And for many of them, it was programs in libraries or in schools, or developing one-man or one-woman shows and going festival to festival. And though I loved that and I admired that, I knew that just wasn't quite the right fit for me. So I kind of stumbled around, and I was doing consulting work without even really knowing it for different nonprofit organizations and different thought leaders, helping them tell their stories. And finally, one of my clients, who then became a mentor, said to me, if you can figure out a way to teach people how to do what you know how to do, you've got something. And so it was really that, it's funny how one sentence can
change your life.
And so that's really then what ended up happening. I quit my job. I had a couple of kids. And so I started figuring out how to do what I know how to do, so to teach it to others. And then just by chance, I got a call from an event that was looking for a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I said yes. And at that event, I met another speaker who said, you can do this. Like, this is a job that people have. And then it really went from there.
Wow. Okay.
Long answer to a single question.
That's okay, but it seems...
I wanted you to get the whole story.
It seems to be such a no-brainer that storytelling was your lane, and I'm glad. It's not always as easy for everybody, but once you land there, it's such a relief. And I think for you, you had to recognize what the outcomes of storytelling were so that you could be selling the outcomes versus actually storytelling, right?
Well, and I think that's probably the, if you're listening, I listen to these things all the time and I like try to figure out, and that would be an easy misunderstanding, right? So that, it was easy for her lane was so obvious. And that's true. Like, there wasn't any other lane. The problem is figuring out how to
sell it.
Yeah, because it really wasn't. So as a speaker, right, we get hired to solve people's problems. Like, that's really what you're there to do. The company that hires you, the audience, the people who are there, they want to get better. They're looking for answers. Right. And audiences weren't necessarily looking for the storytelling answer. Now, I feel like they are more and more, which is convenient for me.
They're catching on to it, yes.
Yeah. So that has helped. But when I was first getting started, and even now, I feel like I've only kind of really gotten the grasp of it over the last 2 months, is what is the problem they're trying to solve?
Right.
And if I can meet them in that place and show them that storytelling is the solution to that problem, then I've got something. And I think, so whether your topic is, whatever your topic is, if you can figure out what the problem is that they're trying to solve and how your topic solves that problem, now you have something you can market.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And it wasn't the easiest thing to actually figure out what the problem was that you were solving, but now you've got it. So take us back, what was it, about 3 years ago, when you actually said, I am going to do this as a business, which many of our listeners might be right in that exact position right now. What did you think? Where did you begin and lead us up to today?
Oh, gosh.
You're not going to have a nightmare as you're recounting it, are you?
I know. I just think about all the steps along the way.
Yeah.
So, I think, there's a variety of different ways to talk about this. So obviously the first thing is actually having the speech to give. Now, I was fortunate because I was asked to deliver a speech before I had really considered developing speech.
Right.
So I feel like I was fortunate in that way. I was forced to put together a 90-minute keynote, a 90-minute presentation. So if you don't have that knocking on your door, if you have to do it without that motivation, pretend that you have a 90-minute keynote coming up in 2 months that you have to be ready for. I was fortunate enough. I had that hard deadline. But remember, from there, I didn't really know that it wasn't until I was at that event that I realized I really could do this as a business. Mm-hmm. And so the next step was to figure out who wants to hear this,
right.
Like who wants to know. And I don't think anybody has the luxury necessarily of knowing that right off the bat. I think that's a long discovery process. And so,
true.
but I didn't want to spend too much time discovering. So what I did, and I think is really, I know the title is Accelerating Your Speaking Business, is I set a very, very clear goal to do massive outreach. So I set a goal to, after that conference, to reach out to 100 things a week for 6 weeks. So it started with,
was your goal.
So 600 in 6 weeks. And I went to CVBs and like convention and visitors bureaus and found their email addresses. I Googled women's conferences. I looked up anything I could find. I just sat there
American Marketing Association was a big one, right?
That was one of them, American Marketing Association. I started to think, because after I spoke at that one event, I thought marketing was kind of something that people were interested in.
Right.
In storytelling, it seemed to match. So I started looking for marketing anywhere, I just Googled marketing speakers, conferences, whatever, and things started to come to me, and I would write them down. Now, once I had 100 in a week, then I would send the emails, which I think is another important thing, because I would say in the meantime, as I was putting that list of emails together, I also got a demo video together. Now, I didn't have a lot to go on. I mean, I had some presentations I had done for the company that I had worked for. I had little clips, I had like photographs, and so I kind of had to, I don't want to say fake it, but there wasn't a lot to go on, right?
At the same time, I'm so impressed with the confidence that you approached it all with. I mean, where you are today, looking back, it was like, whoa, you've come a long way, baby. But at the same time, I wouldn't encourage anybody to really literally fake it until you make it.
Yeah, no.
You have to show up confident in knowing that you have the solution to a problem, and you did. So way to go.
It was so funny, because I think confident that's a whole nother topic. I mean, we could turn this into a therapy session, but at the time, I don't necessarily even know that I would have called myself confident, but
Determined.
I wanted that. Yeah. Like
determined.
I just wanted it. So like, that's what I wanted. And I was going to die trying, so, hold on, let me get the lighting a little there.
Okay, so you send out your 600 emails, and over the course of 6 weeks, and the email, which we need to point out, was well constructed. It was short and sweet, and it was kind of conversational. There were some things about the email that seemed to work.
Yeah, it starts with the subject line, I think. I wanted to be, I put an exclamation point in my subject line, which I just felt very strongly about, because I was so enthusiastic about what I was doing. And I was clear right from the get-go what I offered, what I was writing them about. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't, they didn't have to guess, right? And if they were interested in that, then they could click on it. And if they weren't, they weren't. Now I know how emails show up in your email. You get a little snippet. Everybody's checking it on the phone. So I know the first line was always hello, first name. Hopefully I had a first name. And then it was just like a greeting, just like I would say to anybody, like, hey, how's your week? How's your week been? I hope you had a great week. I hope this message finds you well, whatever it is. And then I got right into it. Mm-hmm. And I know you talk about your promise statement. I didn't know you at the time, but I think I was on the right track with that. And I just said, this is who I am. This is what I offer. Here's a link to see my video. At the time, I was sending attachments with like a brochure or a flyer on it, which I think probably actually hindered me a little bit, because attachments get blocked. So I don't do that anymore. And that was it. I heard back from a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as I heard back from somebody, I went to work finding more people like them. So I happened to reach out to the American Marketing Association in Minneapolis. I didn't even know that I just wanted to go. I had friends in Minneapolis, so I wanted to go to Minneapolis. And so when they wrote me back, I thought, well, if there's a Minneapolis chapter, I wonder if there's more chapters. Right. And then I could leverage the fact that I had gotten something together for Minneapolis, and it just really went from there.
And so now, how many AMAs have you done? How many chapters? Quite a few, hey?
Yeah. I don't visit them as much anymore.
Right. You've priced yourself out of the state market, but I think that it's sometimes there's an association like AMA or SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers, that actually helps to really catapult people into the corporate work. And I think that's what AMA helped for you. You have a lot of really great Fortune 100 companies who are coming after you now. And so would you say that that's a lot to do with it?
Yeah, and I wasn't, when I was just getting started, I had two goals. One was to test my message,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't test your message in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to go out and test your message. So I said yes to anyone who would take me. And then two, it was to get in front of as many people as possible, which obviously fed the first goal. But I figured, it didn't take long to hone that message. And then the more people I got in front of, the more
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. My mantra has always been, the more I speak, the more I speak. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think it was my willingness to just say yes.
Right.
And that got me to where I was today.
And that's perfect. In terms of year one, that's what you want to be doing. Just be open
Yeah.
to everything that comes. And I think you had a really great attitude to it. But then there comes a time. So you've described it before as it felt like you were pushing the giant boulder up the hill. But
Yeah.
then you got to the top of the hill, and have been times in the last 2 years where the boulder has been chasing you. Talk about that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Well, I think it just, there's a lot of then decisions that you have to make, and there's a lot of when you do accelerate your business quickly, there's a lot of business to the business that I didn't necessarily even know how to do. And so it was really valuable to have you, Jane. This is an unsolicited plug for that. It was really valuable to have you as a resource. Some of the friends that I made at NSA chapter meetings, just to bounce ideas off of, because I think that I started speaking, and I would speak and get 3 events after that, and then I would speak and then get 4 events after that, and there was a lot of growing pains of trying to figure out what to say yes to, what to say no to, what to
What to accept, and having the courage to raise your fee, and then raise your fee
yeah
again, and then raise your fee again. That's huge. But something that you just touched on is so important. If you're getting 3 and 4 spin-off from every engagement, that means that your speech is working. You're always kind of refining and sharpening the saw a
yeah
little bit, but for the most part, I think that that's important to recognize that you were really, really good on the platform. And one of the things that I say is there's no better form of marketing than a great speech. So how much time and energy did you put into kind of figuring out that part about it?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two answers to that. And the first one is, as I said, I was fortunate enough it's funny. I have this conversation with my husband who we have kids, and it's the debate of whether they go into sport, are they going to be athletes because he
Mm-hmm.
played Division I water polo, or are they going to be on the speech team and in theater? And I was like, listen, you are not a professional water polo player. So
That's
my
right.
expertise, I know. So it's kind of funny, but I did have that training. I'd been training for the stage since I was 11. So as far as like
Yeah.
being on the platform, I had decades worth of that. And then, even in my sales roles, like it was all very, however, what I needed help with, and I think makes all the difference in the world, delivering a great speech, is all the different audiences then that you have to speak for. So it's one thing to have an excellent message that's kind of cookie cutter. It's another thing to spend the time to to know the people who are in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, and the nature of my topic, storytelling is across all industries, right? So I'll be speaking to education, I'll be speaking in tech sales, I'll be speaking in the veterinarian industry. And so in the earlier phases of the business, I say earlier, like a year ago, 18 months ago, I had to learn over time the importance of the work that you put into each individual presentation. And
Mm-hmm.
so now one of the things that I do is I get on the phone with the organizers, I hear what they're thinking, and then I get a list of 3 to 5 people who will be in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and I schedule calls with all of them. And it's amazing, different things that you get to know the language that they speak, you get intimate knowledge on what they're working on, what's going well, and then I can walk away with knowing that I can serve them in a very particular way, because they know what they know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need to teach them what they know. But the more idea I have of what they know, the better I can take what I know and help them with what they're already doing. If that makes sense.
And you can share their stories with the rest of the audience, thus making them the heroes of your stories versus you being the hero all the time. Or
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
I think that's just amazing, and I think that's what really has allowed you to go from here up to that next kind of catapulted place. So that's and I hope everybody will go out to your website at Kindra Hall, Kindra Hall.com, and just check out your new demo video, because I think it really shows there's this real natural conversational style that you have that that probably started back when you were 11 years old, and it's just something that you don't see every time. It just looking so effortless. And the other thing that you did really well in your video was you started with why. The old Simon Sinek phrase, start with why. At the beginning of the video, you really talked about the why, and I thought that was really interesting and important as well. The video is really working for you, I take it, hey?
Yeah, I mean, it's new. So we have, as we're having this conversation, I think it's 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really quite remember.
Yeah.
But I did, it was I think, okay, so we'll say this. One of the things that I've done over time that I think has really helped is continuously reinvested or invested in getting to the next level. So when I started, it was this little demo video and a website that was just pieced together, and that's what I had, and so that's what I went with, and I went with it. And then I got to a point where it was time for a new website, and so I invested in it. I sat down, I spent the money, I did the work, and we got a new website and then now this new phase is this new video. I had to wait to get on the stages that would produce the video, but it's always been a reinvestment, and I've been very, very strategic about that. But then, as you were saying with the video, that too was there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it goes back to that messaging and that lean thing. Is if you just come at them, you have to enter the conversation where they are. And so that first part of my video, I feel like that was our goal, is to meet them where they are and then take them to where I can take them from there.
Very, very good. Well, so if you were to kind of sum up what you think the real key to your meteoric rise has been, and this has happened very quickly, what do you think have been, one or two of the things that have really, really helped you?
There's a lot of them, I would say. I think one is being, I'm trying to think. There's
Could
so
we
many.
say playing the numbers game? The
Yeah,
600 emails that you put out there, for sure.
And that's an important thing, because so that's really how I got started, right? So it got going. There was a lot of spin that came from that. But then what happened was, and this just happened, at the end of last year, you'll remember, is I had backed off from outreach because I was busy. There was just a ton of stuff going on. And I also backed off because I knew I had some great video. I knew I was going to be doing a new video, and so I didn't want to. But then I came into, the beginning of 2017, and there were gaps on my calendar that that I was not happy with. And so I think, so learn from my mistake in that way is that I don't know where that tipping point is where you don't have to do outreach anymore. But I certainly stopped for a while and I shouldn't have. So that's one thing is outreach. And then I should have taken some of my own advice and
outreach, and then maybe we add on consistent outreach. And
exactly.
so blogging and doing things and social media and all of those machines that you can get up and running. So even when you are busy, the machine still runs to keep the pipeline filled.
Yep, exactly.
That might be good. That might be good. And also being great from the platform. I have to say that that's got to be a huge, huge element in your acceleration. So people who are thinking, oh, my speech is good enough, well, make it epic. Make sure that it's epic. And if you're getting 3 and 4 spins from every single engagement, then you know you're there.
Yeah. And I think I really do. You're right. Like, I think that is, and so whether you're just getting started or, you know, anything you can do to and again, I think you have to be on stage to be getting better. So create your stages, you know, so if that means getting friends together, if that means going to, you know, just the local school board room or whatever it is, get stages, because that's the only way you can get better on stage.
I like your mantra. Was it the more I speak, the more I speak?
Yes.
That's good. That's good.
The more I speak.
That's good. Okay, so you're working on a book. Let's talk about how people can get in touch with you and what your book is going to be like.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I have a book that was a collection of stories, so that's cute. That's out there. It's done. It's fun. But now I really do want that platform book, the book that whether it's before I get on stage or after I'm there and they want to take me home with them, because I do that, right? When I go to conferences, I want the experience to linger. So the book really is about strategic storytelling and why and also how. And I think if there's anything that, because there are a lot of people talking about storytelling now, which I love, which I think is great, and I think it's going to continue. If I do see a gap anywhere, it comes back to, this is what I've been doing my whole, like, I studied under the greatest storytellers. I sat at their feet and watched the science of how stories come together and what makes a story compelling. And so that's what this book, I was talking to one of my team members and being like, you know, I want this book to be, you know, there's a lot of books that were maybe written about personal growth, but when Think and Grow Rich came out, that was the book. And I want this to be the book that not only says why it's so important, but exactly how you can do it. So yeah.
Awesome. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, do you want them to just come through your website, kindrahall.com?
Yep, kindrahall.com. You can shoot me an email. It's kindra@kindrahall.com. And the thing you said, you know, I don't have a program to sell, the book's not done yet, but one of the things that I am going to need help with is, as we all do when that book comes out, to get the word out. So whether your listeners have podcasts or whether, you know, they'd be willing to share it with their network, I would be so appreciative.
Awesome.
Of it.
Awesome. Well, I'm hoping that somebody who is just sitting at their computer going, where do I begin, will think about your 600 number and say, okay, the more I speak, the more I speak. Let me just start shooting out these emails, and they'll be inspired by what you have done. Kindra Hall, thank you. Our wealthy speaker community thanks you for helping us accelerate our speaking businesses. And for now, we will say bye for now, wealthy speakers.
Thank you so much, Jane. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.